So in the planning of the phases and cells, there's a few things to keep in mind. So we know the overall objectives of the landfill, but just being more specific and technical, we want to minimize the leachate generation. So that's why we only want our cells open for, about 1 or 2 years. If I go back to this picture, you can imagine the rain coming down on phase 1 and 2, and it's going to flow off. Whereas in phase 3, it's going to go right into the system. So the faster that phase can be closed, then the sooner the leachate volumes will be decreased, which will mean less money spent processing leachate. So, keeping cells as small as possible without getting in the way of operations is kind of how you go about cell design to minimize the amount of water that gets in there. We also want to minimize odors, litter, vermin, and fire. And a lot of that comes into the daily covers, so keeping the waste covered up overnight. There's also things like predatory birds, which chase other birds away, and fires suppressed by the cover, as well as monitoring the waste coming in, so there's not any waste that's on fire as coming, which is called a hot load, and that actually happens. It's the main cause of fires. We also want to maximize the landfill gas collection. So 2 reasons, right? One is we don't want our methane going out into the atmosphere. And then the other is we actually want to valorize that energy as much as possible. So coming back to this figure, we want to close those cells so that we can keep the water out, but we also want to extract the gas. So this phase 3, we have no wells in there. There's no way to pull the gas out. Whereas phase 1 and 2, since we've closed them, we've been able to come in and then put vertical wells in on top. So the faster we can get in to do that, the more gas recovery there will be. And that will also help with our odor, right? Pulling the gas into our pipes rather than letting it come out of the landfill. And as I showed in my little miniature video, if we don't want to wait to close the cell before we put those wells in the top, we can build them in as we build the cell up with horizontal wells, which aren't shown here, but I'll show you more of when we get into the landfill gas collection side. So horizontal wells are, or collection trenches, I should say, are way better for collecting gas earlier, but you just need to factor into the construction. So you've got all this waste placement going on, and then you have to worry about, getting these new landfill gas extraction trenches in at the same time. So it takes more planning, but definitely better from a gas collection perspective. And then, as I mentioned, talking about daily operations, we want to maximize productivity and airspace utilization. So getting as much waste packed in as possible on the day-to-day basis to prolong the life of that landfill and then save money spent on landfilling that we can hopefully spend on other waste operations that are going to get us closer to the circular economy ideal. That was a lot of me talking. I think it'll make more sense if you actually look at a real site. And normally we'd be going on a field trip here to see it in person, but I invite you can check out the Google Maps and you can really see some of this stuff in much better detail than you can on the slide here. So Waterloo Landfill, up at the top of the slide, you can see this nice green grass. If you zoom in on the Google Maps, you can see even the wellheads on top of that. You can see some leachate pump houses. So you can see all this part that's been completed already, and it looks pretty nice. Then below that is the working cell. So that's where they're actually doing their day-to-day operations of landfilling. If you zoom in, you can see some of the daily covers. So there's a spray-on green material as well as soil. And you can see some trucks and things like that bringing it up to the tip face and it being compressed into place. Below that, you can see these nice, really precise grades. This shiny black stuff would be part of the liner and leachate collection system. So it's got these really precise slopes in order to use as much space as possible while being geotechnically stable. And then you can see this gray gravel being placed, which would serve as the leachate collection system, would provide this really high permeability layer for the leachate to flow and be collected. And then all this excavation produces soil that needs to be saved for when you want to close the cell later, as I kind of showed in my miniature video. So at the bottom are stockpiles of all that material. So there's a lot of things going on here. We've got the operating the leachate collection system and the gas system in the closed cell. We've got the new cell and the day-to-day waste operations and placement of daily cover and control of fire and odor and all those things. At the same time, we're building this new cell and excavating and building stuff, and as well as stockpiling all the material coming out of there. And that's just all in this one frame. The site's much bigger and there's a lot more going on. So hopefully you can appreciate kind of the complexity of managing this constant construction project and all these things that are going on at the same time at a landfill.